Shalom and welcome back to the tea table. As always, thanks for being here today. I was reading in the book of Matthew this morning when the disciples asked a question concerning Jesus, and I heard very clearly in my mind, was that a rhetorical question? Most of us already know that a rhetorical question is asked just for effect, or to put emphasis on some point discussed when no real answer is expected. When I was a youngster growing up in New York City, I was always asked rhetorical questions by my older brothers. More than once I was asked, "What, are you stupid or something?" Or, "What's the matter with you? Don't you have any brains?" Sometimes I would be asked what was supposed to be a rhetorical question, and I would give an immediate answer that would end up with me running for my life. Example, when my oldest brother asked me, "What, do you think I'm stupid?" And I would answer, "Yes." Not a good thing to say. Thank goodness I was faster on my feet. We're confronted with rhetorical questions all the time, and even find them in the Bible from God Himself. You might be thinking, why would God ask anyone a question? It's certainly not because He doesn't understand, but in every question could it be that there's something He wants us to understand. In Genesis 32, verse 27, God asks Jacob a question, who lied about his identity to falsely assume the birthright blessing. So God asks, "What is your name?" Again in Genesis 18:13, after Abraham's wife, Sarah, laughed concerning a promise God made about her, "Is anything too difficult for the Lord?" How about in 1 Kings 19:13? God asks the prophet Elijah this question when he finds him running and hiding from Jezebel. "What are you doing here?" And my favorite, when Adam is hiding from the presence of the Lord in the garden, God asks the question in Genesis 3:9, "Where are you?" You see, these are all rhetorical questions where God is making a point that the listener needs to think about and really isn't expecting an answer. Imagine, God asks Adam the question, "Where are you?" What would you expect to hear? "I'm hiding behind the fourth large rock in the apple grove next to the bubbling brook." Of course not. God said, "Adam, where is your head at? Don't you see the consequences for your actions that are going to follow you all the days of your life and even past your lifetime?" By the way, just because a person doesn't have an answer to a question doesn't mean it was a rhetorical question. There are some questions that demand a response from the listener. So, as I was reading in Matthew chapter 8, verse 27, it tells us, "The men were amazed and asked, 'What kind of man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him.'" This, my friends, is not a rhetorical question. This question, like the question found in Matthew 27, verse 22, which reads, "Pilate said to them, 'Then what shall I do with Jesus, who is called the Christ?'" It should be apparent that the people Pilate was speaking to knew perfectly well that the question presented to them demanded an answer. My friends, here we are confronted with two questions concerning Jesus. What kind of a man is this? And then, what shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ? After so many thousands of years, it should still be apparent that both of these questions still demand an answer. Why is the response to these questions so important? And by the way, there must be a response, because these are not rhetorical questions. Based on your response to "What kind of a man is this?" and "What then shall I do with Jesus, who is called the Christ?" lies your eternal future, the promises of God for your life, and where you will be spending eternity. You know, over 2,000 years ago, the mob's response was, "Crucify him." And they had to live with their decisions. Here we are over 2,000 years later, and the same questions are still being presented to us and will continue to stay with us until we make a decision and answer the two questions. Who do you say this man is? And what will you do with this man called Jesus the Christ? There can only be two responses. You either accept him or you reject him. If you reject Jesus, you have to live with your decision. If you accept Jesus, then you have to follow him. So my friends, choose you this day what your response will be, because you never know how soon it will be too late. And with that, I leave you with this. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. Ye'er Adonai panav elecha v'hunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yesamlecha shalom. The Lord bless you and protect you. The Lord cause the light of his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn all of his attention to you and give to you his peace. God bless, my friends, and I'll see you again next week at the tea table.